Howdy folks, Laxo here. And today we're going to be getting into this SSR tiers that we all have been waiting so patiently for. So usually on these days what I like to do is I like to have on a guest that helps place each character. Today, unfortunately, I will not be having a guest on today. Let's go ahead and swap scenes here. I will be having an extra little window here, as you can see. And what I'll be doing with these windows is as I'm going over each character, I'll go ahead and pull up each whatever rage skill, mastery skill, passive, and go over why I think they are where they are placed. So, first up, let's go ahead and check out SSR Chad. So, Chad's actually not terrible. Early game, he's pretty good. He hits the entire team. And he does do a little bit of damage reduction as well as a little bit of rage reduction as well. Or rage recovery rate reduction. However, he's just not that great. His damage isn't great. He's pretty squishy for who he is. He does have a passive that's pretty good. You know, regen a flat 25% of your HP. With some more souls, you can get that up pretty high. However, I don't think he is that great. So I'll be pushing him into okay. It was I was tempted to toss him into bad, but he's not really that bad. Next up, we have Lisa. Lisa is actually one of my favorite SSR characters. I used her for the longest time. Unfortunately, she's an attack specialty and she just falls off so hard. They actually had her early on. They messed up her kit and they didn't have, I think it was just raw damage that wasn't even accurate. Nothing was working on her. I ended up putting in a ticket. They ended up fixing her and she was so good. And she was so good for a while, but unfortunately, she's just a little squishy. She does do some decent damage, gives random debuffs. But unfortunately, she's just not that good. I really want to put her into situational because she could be situational, but she's an attack specialty and she's just too squishy and she falls off. So, next up. Renji is actually, however, pretty good. I think he's probably one of the best SSR characters. He's a tank, and the funny thing about Renji is he's actually extremely tanky. If you check out his... what was it? This? If you check out his passive here, he continually gains max HP and defense each time he rages, and it can get pretty crazy of how tanky he is, especially with the right War Souls. And if you take a look at his rage skill here, one thing I have been doing is I have been trying out the War Soul Shattering on him because you can really get some good taunts. I think I've seen up to like 4 or 5 taunts in one round with Renji. So he's pretty darn good, honestly. I want to put him in any team because he can pretty much fit in any team, but I'm going to drop him down to top tier because I really only want to put any team as to... you know what? He really could go on any team, though. You know what? I'm going to say any team. He is that good, in my opinion. Any team. Next up, we have Ryuken. Ryuken's actually... early game, he was decent. But unfortunately, he fell off very quickly, and he never, ever came back. He's just not that great. He does do a little bit. He gives, I believe, crit chance to the allies, and he also, let's see here, dispelling as well on his, but unfortunately, he doesn't really do much other than that. I want to put him in bad, but honestly, I would probably use Cone over him. Next up, we have Linet. So, Linet is actually pretty crazy. I used to use her in Squad Boss for a while, and then I started messing around with her in actual 6v6 teams, and she is actually pretty crazy what she could do. She just She does a little bit, she gives a little bit of defense, this and that, but her big thing is her rage skill right here. Whenever she rages, recovers 300 rage. Um, that's pretty nuts. All I can say is that's pretty nuts. Yes, she does have a chance of getting disoriented, but that alone really, really gets her at really high on the list. I'm going to go ahead and slot her into top tier. She could go into any team, but there are just better options, unfortunately, as far as rage recovery rate goes. I really want to put her in any team, but I'm going to put her in top tier. Next up, we have SSR Baragon. So SSR Baragon was actually once upon a time one of the best SSR characters. But once again, unfortunately, he kind of falls off. The reason why I used him for so long is because he was pretty tanky. He did a little bit, I believe he block chance for the front row, which is pretty good, 40%. But that's his raid skill, and it doesn't happen too often. Once again, unfortunately, he just falls off. I still like to use him, especially earlier on. I'm going to say situational. I could put him in okay, but I'm going to say situational, because in some teams he could be good, but I just look at him now as more so like mini UR Baragon. He does do decent things. Next up, we have Byakuya. You guys are probably looking at, hey, Laxo, that's a UR character. Not to me. He is an SSR character to me, and he's actually not too bad. Mastery skill, he gets a little bit of rage, and of course, the debuff, he removes he removes buffs from the enemy team. However, his rage skill, what he does is bleed, recovers rage for the ally back row. Not bad, and even his I can't really pull it up, but his Awaken ability is actually not too bad either. Let's see if I can get that on the screen for you guys. It's actually not too bad either, but unfortunately, I just don't think he is as good as people think he is. But he still is a very, very good character. And so I'm going to go ahead and place him here in... I'll put him in situational. He does do some bleeds, but once again, unfortunately, his bleeds just don't do any damage. Like, they don't tick for very much damage because he doesn't have very high attack. So he gets situational. I want to put him in okay, but with his Awakened Runes, he's actually not terrible. Next up here, we have Unohana. So Unohana, I think out of the gate, even fresh out of the gate, she's probably one of the best SSR characters in the game. Earlier on, we used her so she could die, just so we can get her compassion off, and she can, do all kinds of good things. However, what we really want to do is we want to rush the runes on her as fast as possible. Let's go ahead and grab these runes here for you guys real quick. What she does is she just gives rage to your entire team, and she gives a lot of it. Even without her 6 Awakened Runes, she's still probably, in my opinion, one of the best SSR characters in the game. And on top of that, she even heals. So wherever she's at, she does good. She dies, she's good. She takes damage, she's good, because then she gives you health. And yeah, she does good at everything. So with that, she's going to go in any team. Next up, we have SSR Nna-Ichigo. So, she is, I believe, a Season Pass character. She's not bad. Honestly, I would probably pass on getting her because you can get her weapon just out of the boxes. And she's really not that important. So, she's okay. Like, she doesn't do very much. Even her rage skill, she doesn't do very much. The only reason why she's actually not bad is because her passive. She can give effect reduction to the entire team, which is huge nowadays in the meta. So with that, I want to put her in bad, but I feel like I could put her in okay. I'm just going to drop her into bad just because outside of that, she really doesn't do too much, and I really wouldn't want to use her in any teams. Next up, we have Shunsui Kyaraku. So he's actually pretty solid. I was pretty negative on him when he first came out, and then I actually started looking at the things he does. He does some pretty good damage. As you can see, his entire kit is pretty much just made to do tons of damage. 50% increased damage when his HP is greater than 50%. And then his rage skill, he just gets all of his HP back. So he's not bad. And on top of all that, he doesn't do too much damage, but he reduces rage as well, which obviously is very key in the meta and today in general. So I want to put him in top tier. I kind of want to put him in any team, but I don't think he's quite any team necessary. I'm going to go ahead and put him into top tier. Although, if there was a tier in between these, I would probably put him in there. I'm going to go ahead and leave him in top tier for now, though. Next up, we have Abrama. Abrama is actually pretty solid. He used to be key. Very key when it came to squad boss. He used to be a staple, but since then he's kind of fallen out. He's kind of fallen off a squad boss, and now he goes to just some teams. What he does is he pretty much just shreds defense on all enemies. Just absolutely shreds defense. Armor break, as you can see, damage received is increased by 8%. He shreds defense and, of course, increases your damage as well, but more so shreds defense. I like him a lot. I would still use him. I feel like I should use him a little more often. Not quite top tier for me. I'm going to go ahead and drop him in situational just because there are a lot of characters that actually steal attack, steal defense, and reduce defense as well. So I'm going to go ahead and leave him in situational. Next up, we have Ishin. So he's actually not bad. Early game, you can get him on a couple teams. Early game. But he kind of falls off just because he's so squishy, and all he really does is just trigger dots. I actually used to use him in Squad Boss because of his passive. As you can see, whenever an ally, aside from mission, uses a rage skill, increase his rage by 100. So you used to be able to get like a mini loop off, so to say, run him on a dot team, and then trigger those dots, and then rage again with the other allies, and it increases rage. But unfortunately, as we can see here, it's just a percentage chance. If this was a 100% chance every time, I would be more inclined to put him in situational. But unfortunately, other than dots, he just doesn't do too much. Next up, we have Hiyori. She's actually not too bad. She's fairly tanky, believe it or not. You can get her to 7-star pretty easily, pretty early game. So she's not too bad. What she does is she pretty much just survives. She survives pretty good, as you can see. Where is it? Is it her passive? Yeah. Whenever she gets solo, she just recovers a bunch of HP, which is pretty good. And again, she survives, which is key. Early game, you can definitely get away with using her quite a bit, especially because she could be a budget tank. I don't use her anymore because there are so many other better tanks when it comes to URs in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and drop her in situational. And next up, we have Jushiro. Jushiro Kotake is actually early game. When the game first released, he was probably one of the best characters in the game because there were only like 2 UR characters out. However, he's just not that great. The only thing he could do is he could rage loop if he crits, but when he does rage loop, he decreases his crit. Even with his, let's go ahead and grab his Awaken Runes here. Even with his Awaken Runes, he's really not that great. Just increases attack, increases crit chance. So honestly, unfortunately, I'm not really a big fan of him. I'm going to put him in bad, and I want to put him in Cone is better. I want to, but I feel like bad is probably a good place because so many people like him more so like a fan favorite, I guess. Next up, we have Ikkaku. Ikkaku is honestly probably one of my favorite SSRs to use. He is super solid. Let's go ahead and take a look here. His mastery skill. I mean, he does pretty much everything. Decreases block chance, decreases crit chance, rage attack. Honestly, his rage attack is probably one of the best SSR rage attacks in the game, let's be honest. I like to see him as with him on your team whenever he rages, you just increase your percentage of chance of winning every time he rages. It's kind of crazy. Damage reduction, he reduces the attack defense damage rate and damage reduction rate of all enemies, and it just stacks from there. On top of that, his passive is pretty darn good as well if you put him on the right team with some skill characters. So honestly, with him, I want to say you can pretty much just put him on any team. I could probably see a world where somebody put him in top tier, but honestly, he's just that good. If you can get him early, if you can get him and use him, as soon as you get him and use him, he will be a team changer. Next up, we have probably the best character in the game. Nah, I'm kidding. It's just Renji, SSR Renji. He's not good. I mean, he does do a couple good things, like his rage skill, for example, has a chance of stunning. Like, he does do decent things, but unfortunately, as you can see, it's for one round, and it's just not very long and not very much. I think if they updated Renji and literally doubled him across the board and made his rage attack maybe hit the entire enemy team, I could see him being used more often. But unfortunately, he's probably one of the worst SSR characters in the game. And that's even with his Awaken skill as well. Just honestly an overall just garbage character. If you get him, just hope you don't get him very many times and hope you get other SSR characters when you do your summon pulls. Next up, we have Wonderweiss. Wonderweiss, I remember when he first came out, he was like a wild card character. You know, he could be very good, he could be very bad. Especially with Yamamoto, you know, just burn, remove burn. And then you have his rage skill, just remove dots, dispels. Like, he honestly wasn't a terrible character when he first came out. He was pretty exciting, in my opinion. But as you can see, he just doesn't do much. Dots can be applied really fast nowadays and in insane numbers as well. You know, in one round you can get 10, 15 dots applied to your entire team, which unfortunately just doesn't really help him too much. Maybe if it was for each dot on each character, he gains 100 rage. That way, you know, he could literally rage every single round. Or if we could find a way to make him rage loop, then he could be usable, but once again, unfortunately, just doesn't do much. I'm putting him in bad. I feel like I could put him in Kona's better, but I'm just going to leave him in bad for now. Next up here, we have Kid Byakuya. Honestly, Kid Byakuya, I did like him quite a bit earlier on when we first got him. He was pretty solid, you know. He does a lot for crit chance and crit damage. He's pretty nasty if you can get him on the right team and get him to rage and rage often, and of course get him to crit as well. But unfortunately, hot-blooded, he kind of just kills himself, reducing Byakuya's damage reduction by 5%. Honestly, it's not that much, but I just don't really see him being used too often nowadays. I want to put him in situational. I feel like he's a pretty situational character. Definitely not top tier, and he's definitely not bad. So I'm going to leave him in situational. Yeah, I feel like that's just a decent spot for him, situational, because he does give crit chance, crit damage, I believe, and yeah, that's that. Oh, of course, reduces crit resist chance as well. Next up, we have Yoruichi. Honestly, Yoruichi, I have always liked her quite a bit. Even before we got her Awakened Runes, which are actually pretty solid. I've always liked her. She just blocks everything, and the way I see block is damage rate or damage reduction rate 50%, because essentially you just reduce all the damage by 50%. So honestly, she's pretty solid. Let's go ahead and take a look here at her Awakened. Yeah, here it is. If you can get her defense up and just get her just really tanky, and then she uses thorns on top of that, honestly, I like her quite a bit. Even nowadays, I'd still see myself using her if she wasn't so squishy and there wasn't block pierce chance. Block pierce chance is just all over the place. Early game, if you fight her in pretty much anything, if you fight her in the story mode, you fear for that. You do not want to fight her in story mode because she just endlessly blocks everything. And you guys will see early that she is pretty nuts. But with that, she gets situational. Not quite top tier, but situational. Next up, we have Hinomari Momo. Honestly, I've always liked Hinomari, especially her Season Pass version. She's honestly not bad. Inflicts block healing. Not too many characters just inflict just flat block healing. And of course, as we can see here, grants 1 to 3 random buffs on all allies. Yes, it is kind of like gambling a little bit, but then again, so is this game. So she's honestly pretty good. Even her passive, she's very, very solid. I use her on my all-female character team, and yeah, I think she's really good. And with that, I'd probably place her in top tier. If there was a tier in between situational and top, I'd put her in there. But I'm going to go ahead and put her in top tier just because I feel I see myself using her more and more often as the actual game goes on. Next up, we have Yashido. Yashido, probably one of the worst characters in the game. Moving on. Just kidding. Yashido, I actually really, really do like her. I like to give people crap that use her, because I like to say, she's terrible, but no, in reality, she's actually really solid. I do like to use her quite a bit, especially, well, her main place is pretty much in my all-female team. Let's see here, pull out her rage attack, is it? No, it is her passive. As you can see, when allied with female characters, her attack has a 30% chance of silencing the target, period. Last one around. Insane. Just any female character, any attack, boom, silence. It's pretty nuts. And on top of that, her Awakened, let's go ahead and grab that here. We have her, is that, yeah, right there, yeah. We have her Awakened Runes. Honestly, that just helps her out even more, as we can see. 6 runes, she just gets her rage back so quickly. She is a little squishy. She could take damage, but that just increases her rage. She could rage more, remove debuffs from your back row. And then, yeah, honestly, just absolutely insane. I do like her, but honestly, I wouldn't use her in any other team besides my all-female team. I kind of want to put her in top tier. I want to put her in situational because, again, she's very situational. The only place I'd use her is my female team, but I'm put her in top tier just because I know a certain somebody, Mr. Love out there, would be really upset if I didn't place her a little higher. So with that, she's going to get a bump to top tier. I definitely don't see her in any team, but top tier. I think that's a pretty good place for her. Next up, we have a character that should not be on this list. We have Rare Ichigo. He's a rare character. He's not an SSR character. He should not be on this list. That is a whoopsies. However, if I were to rank him, I'd put him in bad. Maybe okay. A lot of people do like to use him. Yeah, let's just add him to the list. Even though he's a rare character, we'll leave him on this list. We did add Byakuya to the list, so I'll just toss Ichigo on this list as well. Rage attack reduces rage. Not bad. Honestly, any character that reduces rage is pretty good. He doesn't really do too much damage. And even if we pull up his Awakened Runes here, like, not really too impressed, you know? His attack is low, bleeding doesn't do much. I just don't like him, and I wouldn't really use him in any team ever other than maybe like the first week of playing the game. So with that, he gets dropped. Too bad. Honestly, I don't really want to even put him in okay. I just think he's bad. So with that, moving on. Next up, we have Toshiro, Snowboard Toshiro. So when he first came out, he was one of those characters that was looked at like he could be good. When you look at his rage skill, he has the guaranteed freeze. So when we saw the guaranteed freeze, it was just like, whoa, guaranteed freeze, finally. Very reliable way of CC? No, unfortunately not. His outside of his guaranteed freeze, 25%, it's just not very good. He freezes one character and then very low percent chance to freeze anything else. Mastery skill, let's see here. Yeah, okay, so this is the one thing that always kind of bugged me a little bit is right here it said ski Toshiro. He doesn't have skis on though. He has a snowboard. Like, that is very clearly a snowboard. Yeah, it's always bothered me a little bit. A lot of people do like him. A lot of people do use him. I don't really like him or use him too often. Me personally, I want to put him in okay. Perhaps situational. I mean, he has the guaranteed freeze. You have characters that work really well off freeze. But I just don't really like to use him very much. The problem if putting him in okay is he's better than these characters. And if I put him in situation, I feel like some of these characters are better than him. I'll put him in situational just because the guaranteed freeze, and we have other characters that actually work well with freeze. So, with that, not really too good of a fan, but people do tend to like him. Next up, we have Love here. Love, he is pretty okay. So when I did use him, and that was for a very small period of time, I pretty much only used him to reduce the defense and apply burn. That was pretty much the only reason why I used him for a very short period of time. His damage reduction rate increase isn't really good. It's for one round, and it's the 30%, and he's so squishy that even when he does manage to get 30%, he's still too squishy for me. So with that, I would only use him for his rage skill. I don't really like him too much. I'm going to put him in okay. I want to put him in bad, but I'm going to leave him in okay. Next up, we have Komamura. Komamura is actually pretty good. I do like using him on my free-to-play account, not my main account, but on my free-to-play account, I definitely see some use out of him. He's probably one of the first characters you're going to want to probably get to 7-star as soon as possible. He's probably one of the best characters in 1v1, and honestly, he just stays alive. Let's go ahead and take a look here at his Awakened skill, Resist Forever. As you can see, he just regains HP and stays alive forever. Not so strong in 6-on-6 formats, but in 1v1 formats more so, he is just insanely tanky and pretty much stays alive forever. With that, I want to put him in okay, but I'm going to drop him in situational just because I would use him over any of the units I have in okay. So with that, situational is probably a decent spot for him. Next up here, we have Soifon. Soifon early game. Early game, she's actually stupid strong. She's actually nuts early game. She does so much damage early game. Later on, she falls off. Ultra crit. Look at that. All attacks have a guaranteed % crit. But unfortunately, ultra crit's not that great. Even her passive isn't really that great. It just executes. However, the only thing, her saving grace here, is actually this right here. Her awakened skill. Shields are very, very common nowadays. They are all over the place. So her 6 runes is actually not too bad, especially if you can kill the enemy back row, then just delete the shields in the front row. She's not too bad. I wouldn't use her on any team. But early game, she's actually pretty strong. So I'm going to go ahead and drop her in OK. I feel like OK is a pretty decent spot for her. If she did more damage, I feel like I would probably maybe bump her up to situational, or if she maybe had like a row or a column attack, then she'd be very, very good. But unfortunately, it's just single target. Next up here, we have Season Pass Lisa. Honestly, I've always liked her. I think she's pretty solid, definitely underrated in my opinion. She has the, where is it at? I believe she has heal reduction. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Decreases healing rate received by 35% and damage reduction rate by 15%. All enemies. With that, her and Byakuya really do work pretty well together. I see her as like a mini Cura. Yeah, Cura. She's pretty good. I do like her quite a bit. I use her in my all-female team, and I do kind of swap her in and out of my my heal reduction team as well. Once again, I do like her. Wow, look at this. I have like a nice pyramid going here. It's working out kind of well. I want to put her in situational. I kind of want to put her in top tier, to be honest. I would use her pretty much over any of these characters. And honestly, I'd probably use her over maybe 1 or 2 of these characters as well. So yeah, I think top tier is a good place for her. Especially if you can get her to 6-star, 7-star. She can really help you out quite a bit. Next up on the list, we have Findor. Honestly, Findor is... he is decent. He's not bad. The problem with him is his shards, I believe, are a little too difficult to get. Let's double check here real quick. Yeah, you can't get his shards from the summon. You can only get them from the SSR boxes. But the problem we run into with Findor is there's just too many other better SSR tanks and units than he does. So by the time we end up getting to him to want to invest into him, he doesn't really help us out too much. He does do, I think he does do taunts, right? He does do some, yeah, he has a 50% chance to taunt targets. So he's kind of like like Renji, you know, a little mini Renji, I guess. He does do some taunts. Pretty good % chance of taunting too. And the damage reduction rate's actually pretty insane too, right? Decreases the taken from basic attack. Yeah, 50%. Unfortunately, it's not rage attacks where it really gives him some good damage reduction, but nonetheless, it still gives him decent damage reduction. Problem I see is he just not very tanky, and there are too many other better units than he is. I want to put him in bad. I want to put him in cone is better. I'm going to leave him in bad. I would probably use him before I use Renji. Like, let's be honest. I would use anybody besides Renji, and Findor is not too bad. At least Findor can tank a little bit. Next on the list, we have SSR Toshiro. I really like Toshiro. He was actually the first character I got the Awakened Runes for, just because when I saw what he did, I was like, yeah, this guy is going to be pretty good. For his mastery skill, he completely nullifies healing. Healing rate set. Well, okay. Let's clarify this first. I did some testing on Toshido probably a couple weeks ago. Yeah, about a month ago or so. And his healing nullification. Let's go ahead and grab that real quick, just so we're all on the same page here. This right here, as we can see, Master Skill proc chance increased by 10%, and heal reduction effect, Master Skills increased to 100%. This is broken. I had this on. I was using Mastery Skills on, I think it was a Nell? I'm sorry, yeah, Nell. Yeah, Nell. Christmas Nell, and she was still healing through everything. So I believe this is busted right now. It doesn't work. The other good thing about him is his 6 Legendary Awakened Runes. Ally back row characters deal 20% additional damage to skill specialty characters. And then if we look over at his... I believe it is this, his passive? Yes. Ally and skill specialty allies and attack specialty allies deal 15% more damage to defense specialty. So right out of the gate, we're doing extra damage to defense and skill specialty characters just by having him on your team. And we get a little bit of freeze here as well. So we get CC, we get bonus damage to our back row. This is permanent, by the way. This isn't only when you use your rage color. No, this is permanent. And on top of that, we get our mastery skill too, which completely nullifies healing if it worked. So with that being said, I really like Toshido. I would use him before I use this Toshido, hands down. I would use him before I use pretty much anybody in this row, to be honest. I might use Yoruichi before him as a tank. But as a support, I definitely use Toshido before. There's a case for him to be made to be put in top tier. If he worked, and I knew he worked properly, I'd put him in top tier. But I think he's still broken. So I'm going to go ahead and drop him in situational for now. But nonetheless, he's highly underrated. Highly, highly underrated. Especially with, if this, again, heal reduction worked 100%. Toss on that Ghost Warsaw, which I guess not too many people have, and you could just destroy in 1v1s and destroy healing in general for a single character on the enemy team. Till then, honestly, I feel like I should even put him in okay at that, just because his heal does not work right now. So let's just say somewhere in between here, and then if his heal worked, there's a good chance I might bump him up to top tier. Moving on to Loopy here. All right, Loopy. I actually haven't looked at Loopy here in a while. Yeah, that's right. Okay, this is the dot character. Okay. Yeah. Deals extra damage target with bleeds. Yeah. Being taken inflicts an extra stack of bleed. Okay, I remember now. Loopy is... I was very underwhelmed by the rage attack. I was really hoping that it would be like Ishin, where it would proc dots, but instead of that, it would add an extra layer of dots across, so instead of having 10 dots, it would be 20 dots, This was a part of the original, Dream Team dot Dream Team. But once again, just way too squishy. Just doesn't do much. I know it does. Let's see here. Yeah. Problem here is 10% damage reduction isn't really that much. So maybe if it was for each layer of dots, it's 10%. That would probably be a little better. And maybe if the rage skill hit the entire enemy team and added more than just one layer of dots, it would be better. Unfortunately, though, Loopy is not that impressive by any means necessary. I kind of want to put Loopy in Cone is better. I would use... Let's see here. I would use Loopy before I use these units, but I wouldn't use Loopy before I would use these units. So I think Cone is better, probably not a bad spot. Unfortunately, just too squishy. Doesn't really do much. Yeah, not very good. Even if it was just increased attack for the entire team, that'd be good. You know, there were a bunch of small things that you could do to Loopy to make Loopy good, but unfortunately, not very good. Moving on to Kensai here. Kensai, he actually used to be probably one of the best SSRs in the game early. He was just insanely tanky. He was like another Yoruichi, but even better because Yoruichi didn't have her Awaken Runes, and Kensai was just nuts. Let's see here. Increases Kensai's block chance by 20%. Then his Rage skill lowers the crit chance by 20% and damage rate by 10%. And then the kicker was his passive here. Increased crit resist chance, which was a big one, but recovers the max HP based on every block skill. You could just recover so much HP and just block and heal, block and heal, block and heal. He was a monster in 1v1. I remember he was top tier in 1v1 for a very, very long time and top tier as a tank for a very, very long time. I think the first couple World Championships teams, or World Championships, I actually used Kensai regularly, because he was that good. But once again, Block Pierce just falls off so heavily, and he's just a shell of what he used to be, of his former self, so to say. I think he goes in okay. You could still use him in the lower tiers. Even pretty much anything before GM Grandmasters, you could use him and he'll do well for you. But anything outside of that, unfortunately, Block Pierce is just insane now. I think everybody should have a pretty high Block Pierce chance because of the total War Souls. So he falls off, not that great anymore. And the funny thing is, I actually wanted to make a joke about his appearance in the 1,000-Year Blood War arc because it was so underwhelming. But no spoilers, and unfortunately, it is what it is. Moving on to Rukia now. All right, Rukia. She was actually, once again, another decent, solid unit when she first came out. You know, she had a pretty good freeze chance. Let's see, there's a 30% chance to... Oh, that's chill. 20% chance to freeze. It would hit the entire enemy team, which is pretty good. This was back when the effect reduction rate wasn't astronomical. Unfortunately, now everybody has a really high effect reduction rate, so the freeze doesn't proc very often. Other than that, as you can see, effect reduction, and this was effect reduction as well. She was pretty solid. Again, when she first came out, definitely a solid unit you could use on teams with, you are Toshiro, and any other freeze team would be really, really good. SSR Toshiro too. But once again, just not all cracked up to how she used to be. Her 20% chance to freeze is now like a 5% chance to freeze, if that. And other than that, she really does nothing. I'm going to have to drop her down into bad. I think I'd probably use most any of these units before I use her. Maybe I can convince myself here. Her effect reduction rate when she's alive, chill. It just doesn't do much. 30% chance. I gotta drop her down, and Kona's better. Unfortunately, she's fallen off that much. She really doesn't do much. If you really, really, really want to use her on a team, you could use her on a... you could possibly get away with using her on a white Ichigo team to try and get some rage loops, but other than that, she just really doesn't do much. I don't think she's worth using at all on pretty much any team comps. Other than that one team comp that doesn't really get ran at all anymore. Next up here, though, we have Unohana. Unohana, though, she's a different story. She heals and heals and heals. And then after she's done healing, She applies a shield to the entire team. She is pretty much counter to any team that has a one-shot potential. She's a counter to Soifone. She's a counter to Aizen. Counter to all those characters, because when she dies, or when any character dies for that matter, you just get a massive 50% health shield for your entire team. And then, of course, her rage skill as well, heal. She does get some rage back too. And then, of course, where is it? She gets rid of frozen. There's dispels all frozen on all allies as well. So she just eats. She just eats the freeze teams alive. So with that, I don't even have to. She's any team. She is a absolute stud, absolute all star. Cannot go wrong with her. Moving on to Noyatora. This is the SSR version of him. Let's see here. He's the shield guy, right? Let's see. Yeah, he's the shield guy. He is actually even used today. He's not bad for some team comps. Some very few team comps. You could use him in mostly ones that, have characters like Ulquiorra, Aizen, Hyorin Maru, any character that gives shields and works with shields really well. You could probably use him on. Heck, you could probably even use him on a team with Unohana, because the shields as well. So, let's see here. I think this is honestly his rage skill very underwhelming. Mastery skill. What does his mastery skill do again? Oh yeah. The 5% not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. His mastery skill does nothing. Rage skill does pretty much nothing. What you use him for is thorns and extra effect reduction and block chance for your team. Other than that, he's not really used for much. With that, you could probably get away with using him for very few teams. I'm gonna put him in okay. I'd probably use him before I use most of these characters. Findor and Noyatora are actually pretty close. There's a case to be made for me to put him here. So either one of these is not too bad spot for him. Next up, we have Hallibell, SSR Hallibell, actually. She is actually pretty decent. And again, this is a 6v6 tier list. This is not it's not a 1v1 tier list. She is decent. She has a lot of survivability. That is her, shtick. She just has insane survivability, spiritual pressure, gets that damage reduction. Let's see here. Yeah, damage reduction, damage rate, and regens HP. She is pretty good as far as tankiness goes. She is as tanky gets. If this was a 1v1 tier list, she would probably be in top tier. Probably S plus or whatever God tier is in the 1v1 tier list. But once again, this is a 6v6 tier list. I'd use her before I use any of the characters in bed, any of the characters in Kona's Bitter. I'd probably even use her before most of the characters here. She's pretty tanky. I wouldn't use her before pretty much most of the characters here. If you have her at like 7-star, again, this is completely subjective. Each person's different. If they have a 2-star, I don't know, Hiyori, but a 7-star, or a 3-star Hiyori, but a 7-star Hallibell, you're going to use Hallibell before. So, with that, all in the same playing field, I'd probably use her. I'd probably put her in situational. I think that's probably the best place for her. If there's a case to be made where I put her in okay, but I don't want to ruffle too many feathers, so I'm gonna leave her in situational. With that, moving on to Mayuri here. Mayuri was always decent. Early game, he was pretty much best in slot. Early when the game first dropped, he was amazing. Paralyzes everywhere. This 28% chance to paralyze felt more like a 50% chance to paralyze. Poison was really never that great, to be honest. Um, but his big thing was his passive, giving him giving him an extra life after he died. He was such a pain to deal with. You would just use him in the rage slot one, or if you go second, you could just put him in your front line, and he'd just be wonderful for you. But once again, oh boy, have times changed. Let's go ahead and grab his Awaken runes here, just so we can look at that really quickly. Yep, recovers rage. And this is just the extra poison, correct? Yeah, just extra poison. So, with that, it's exactly what I thought. He really doesn't have any, like, super wow factor. I know, like, Mass X was a big old fan of him. But, in my opinion, he's not great. The only thing you could really use him for is CC. I want to put him in okay. I really, really do. I want to also put him in bad, but I'd use him before I use any of these units. And I'd probably use him before I use one or two of these units, but vice versa. So I think okay is probably a decent spot for him. Nothing too great, nothing too bad. Yeah, CC. If he had some kind of, like, rage reduction, or even if this was like a, I don't know, did something else, like a silence or something, I'd probably bump him up, but it is what it is. He's squish, and it is what it is. Next up, we have Aden Honestly, he's not that great. He has an interesting skill set. I don't think he's pretty unique, actually. Especially with his rage skill. Yeah. Let's see here. Rage skills. Yeah. In HP, yeah. I wish this was better. They could make him better if they gave him, like, a defense specialty. Maybe if they made his rage skill do something else. Maybe chance to freeze or something else. Unfortunately, the HP lifesteal, or the lifesteal, only lasts for that round, not even till the end of the round, just till the end of that round. Passive skill isn't even that great either, to be honest. He could have been so good. If they update this, well, I mean, they're never going to update this game again. But if they updated him specifically, they can really do something good with him. But I think bad is probably a good place, and honestly, I'd use these characters before I use him, so maybe Cone is better, unfortunately. Not that great. Moving on to Yummy. Let's see here. Yummy, yeah, he doesn't really do much. Early game, this is probably the unit you will get the most or most often. And you'll probably be very tempted because you'll probably get him as the first character you get the 7-star, maybe second or something like that, because he's such a common drop. But he really is just bad. He doesn't do any damage. The only thing he kind of does is tank a little bit, but even his tankiness is lackluster. Yeah, doesn't do much. Honestly, I'm going to put him in bad. There's a case they made to put him in Kona's better, but yeah, I'd probably use him before I use most of the characters in Kona's better. So, bad it is. And honestly, I'd probably use all of these characters before I use Yami. So, maybe I should put him in bad, but just to keep the kind of pyramid going, I'll put him in bad for now. Moving on to Ulquiorra. My boy Ulquiorra. So, he was stunning when he first came out. No, you're stunning. he was amazing when he first came out. Probably, arguably, the best SSR unit in the game, period. Mastery skill has a really high chance to stun, including the other stuff. Rage skill, it does it all. I mean, the only thing it doesn't do is lower rage for the enemy team. It's tanky, it's extra damage, insane amounts of extra damage. Even his passive is really good. The only thing I do not like about Ulquiorra is you cannot get his weapon. Season Pass. It is hid behind that stupid Season Pass. So, I mean, I don't even have to. It goes without saying. He goes to any team category. Absolutely, he's probably one of the best SSRs in the game. But the only thing I don't like is you cannot get his weapon at all unless you pay $25 or $30 or whatever it is for it. I do not like that, but even with that, I'm still, on my free-to-play account, I'm going to get him to 4-star ASAP and still use him. He's insane. Also, another thing is when Showtime runs out, I believe it was when Showtime runs out, you also have a High Spirits, I think it is. You can stun the enemy. So whenever his shield's depleted, boom, stun. Even if turn 1, if the enemy breaks his shield, he has a chance to stun the enemy team. It's pretty dirty. It goes without saying he's probably the best or one of the best SSRs in the game. Next up we have Giovega here. Giovega is actually pretty insane. The problem with him is you can't get his shards from pretty much. He's very difficult to get shards for. If you want to, you could use Omnis for it. I don't suggest because, you could use Omnis on URs. But he's actually pretty nuts. Let's see here. Deals damage to single enemy and reduces the rage recovery rate by 50%. That's right. He does the rage reduction, rage recovery rate. He does some good stuns and the attack reduction as well, which is nice. And then, of course, the kicker here is the extra damage to stun targets. And what are we looking at? 75% chance to stun the target. I would like if they can do two things. This guy would be absolute top tier. What they need to do is they need to make this attack a column or a row, either or, with the same 75% chance to stun. And then they need to maybe make his passive a little better, and of course put him in the box for the actual SSR box. And I bump him up to top tier, but unfortunately that is not the case. If I had him at 7-star and all the other characters at 7-star, I'd probably use him before any of these characters. Heck, I'd probably use him before most of these characters if I had him at 7-star, but I don't. And with that, he's going into situational. And honestly, there's a case to be made to put him into OK just because he is not that available. Next up here, we have Zomari. Zomari is very, very good in 1v1s. We'll see here in a second why he's very good in 1v1s. But in the 6v6, it's a completely different story. His rage attack, unfortunately, only attacks a single enemy. Block healing is very, very good. The extra damage is very, very good. Mastery skill proc chance increase, very, very good. But once again, the big problem we are having here with him is single target. As you can see here, once again, single target mastery skill increased by 60% chance. If you could get his, and it even goes up from there, 20% each round. So you can get up to you can pretty much get his mastery skill off every round, but unfortunately, it just doesn't do much. He attacks a single target in the front row, and 6v6 doesn't do much. If this was 1v1, I'd probably put him in top tier. maybe even higher. But since it's not, I think he's going to bad. There's a case to be made to put him into okay. So either one of these would probably be not a bad spot for him. I'm going with bad just because he's an attack specialty character, and there's just so many other better units that are attack specialty characters. Moving on to Tessai. Tessai, he is just the Thorns specialty character. That's all he really does is just Thorns. A little bit of attack reduction, right? Where's the attack reduction? Decreased by, yeah, a little bit of attack reduction. Thorns there, Thorns here. Small chance of silence here. He just does a lot of Thorns, and with his Awaken runes as well, it's more Thorns. Counter rate, which is Thorns, and then you get the regen in there as well, which makes him very good for 1v1s. But other than, trying to get away from that, getting one shot, problem is just doesn't do much. You could toss on these two War Souls here. Really get up to you can overcap his or over 100%, get up his reflect damage rate. But other than reflect damage, he doesn't do much, and I don't really see anybody using him in any sort of play. 6v6, I think he drops down to bad. I'd probably use him before a couple of these units, but vice versa, I would probably use these units before I use him, so I think bad's a probably pretty good place for him. Once again, in 1v1, he'd probably be up near situational top tier. I actually have done a 1v1 tier list. You can check that out. I'll probably post it in the description. So, with that, he's bad. Next up here, we have Gain. Not very good. 25% increased crit chance for the master skill. That's it. Just get a little bit extra crit chance. Rage skill, you get a little bit of bleed, a little bit of poison if you're lucky. Hakufuku, once again, not very good. Just a little bit of extra rage at the end of the round. And even passive, just above average, good passive. You can toss him in the rage slot of arena teams, and he'll help out a little bit if you're running a bleed team comp. But other than that, he really isn't that great. He does a couple of dots. Even his, I could swap his little look around here. Honestly, I kind of like this look. I like his OG look. This is kind of like slick, but I kind of like this look a little better. Yeah, even his Awaken runes really are kind of not good. Just a little bit of extra crit chance and a tiny little bit, 12% extra damage to enemies that less than 1,000 rage. Actually, wait, no, that's damage dealt to. I'm not sure if that's his damage or the entire party's damage. I hope it's the entire party's damage. If it's the entire party's damage, that's not bad. 12% extra damage for the entire party is pretty good. So you can get 12 there, 10 here, 22% extra damage. It's pretty good. But even with that, I don't really see him coming in too strong. Tell you what, if this is all party damage, I could put him in okay. If it is not party damage, he goes to bad. So, I haven't tested him. I don't have his Awaken runes, as you guys saw. So, you guys tell me, where does he rank? Okay or bad? In no world is he situational or top tier. Heck, I think he could even be dropped to Cone is better. But, yeah, he's in one of these two. I'm going to go ahead and drop him in bad because I'm not sure if it affects the entire team or not. Next up here, we have Nna-Ichigo. She, honestly, I wanted to like her so bad. She's probably one of my favorite characters in all of Bleach, and I really, really, really wanted her to be good. Um, but she's just lacking. The only thing she does is damage. The only thing she does is damage. Actually, she does do... Yeah, she increases her rage by a little bit as well. But as you can see, 9 times 5, you're looking at an extra 45% damage there. But, yeah, it's just very lacking. I actually got her to 5. Yeah, I got her to 5-star. I was really tempted to 7-star her, but there were too many other better SSR units to 7-star at the time. So I really wanted to. You could even get her weapon through, I believe, regular SSR boxes. I really want her to be good, but damage is just lacking. I even tested her in 1v1 just to see how she was, and once again, severely lacking. Honestly, I think I should probably put her in bad. I think okay might not be a bad place for her. I'd probably use her before I use... I'd probably use her before I use most all units here. But not before I use these units here, so... Yeah, I'm going to have to drop her into bad. And, yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. Next up here, we have Ikkaku. Honestly, he is not very good. He used to be so good when the game first came, or when he first came out. He was like a must-have. He carried your team hard. Gained 200 rages. Nice grammar. Yeah, he was fantastic early. 100% mastery skill proc chance, so he just gained rage really quickly. Effect reduction by 75%. And then he just, let's see here, where's his rage recovery rate? Rage recovery rate by 50%. So he'd instantly get 300 rage whenever he used a mastery skill. And then he'd have like 100% mastery skill proc chance. And then you couldn't affect him. He just had insane mastery skill proc chance. He'd get extra, did he do like extra damage or something? That's included. Oh no, that's extra HP. He gets extra HP. He had heals. Yeah, there it is. Okay, damage rate by 10%. Yeah. He had heals, rage recovery rate. He had effect reduction. He had it all early. And once again, he is a attack specialty that is a black tortoise and did not age too well. He goes to okay at best, unfortunately. Moving on to Stark. Stark is not that great either, actually. Let's see here. He increases his rage by a lot, right? Yeah. User rage quickly recovers 100 rage for each ally that has died to a max. Yeah. His problem was he relied on everybody else dying on his team and the enemy team. And if you can't get that off, then he doesn't really do much. And the sad part is, with that, he's not good in 6v6. And since they have to die, that means he's not good in 1v1 either. There was a case to be made, if that were the case, if it was just missing from the battlefield or something, then he could be good. But with that, I don't think there's a case to be made at all. He gets dropped down to bad. Honestly, not much going for him. I'd probably use Isane before I use him. Or I'm sorry, Nanao before I use him. So next up we have Rangiku Matsumoto. SSR. Pretty good. Silence, single target, really high likely, or really high chance, 50% chance. Very, very good. Rage is just insane for putting some kind of CC on the enemy, whether it's silence or disorient or something. Very, very good chance. And then, of course, her passive, Works really, really well with the all-female team or anti-male all-female team, you know. Rage attack has an 8% chance of adding a disorient effect for 1 round. Works really, really, really well on an all-female team along with her other female counterparts. Let's see here. Her awakened runes here. Also really, really good. Keeps her alive at least past the first round if you can get her, or if you have higher initiative. As you can see, 30% increased defense for 1 round. Shouldn't be hit with a rage skill. And the 2 runes is not bad as well. Damage received is decreased by 10%. Unfortunately, it's only male characters. But that doesn't change the fact that she is a pretty solid unit. And I think she could definitely be used in some teams as far as 6v6 goes. I want to put her in situational. A case to be made for her to go to top tier. But I think situational is probably a good spot for her. I probably use her more often than I should. So top tier, I'd probably use her before most all these characters, and I'd use these characters before I'd use her. So either one of these, if there was a in between, I'd put her there, but there's not. Someone put her in top tier. Moving on to Kukaku. I like Kukaku a lot. I think she is extremely underrated. Her mastery skill is a CC, a stun, and her rage reduces the attack and crit chance. Very, very good. And on top of that, you can get it to launch 2 times in a row. And then, of course, her big thing is her passive. With her passive, you can get shields. And shields and shields and shields. Just endless shields with her. The only thing she's really missing is a big self-heal. But if you put her on a team with a healer, she is pretty good. I would really like for her to have Awaken Runes, but she doesn't. If she had Awaken Runes, she'd be absolutely busted. But she doesn't have Awaken Runes. With that, she's going to situational. I think there's a case to be made to put her in top tier if it's really, really, really early. And you don't have most of these units, then you could probably put her in the top tier. But definitely, I think she's underrated. I think she performs much better than people think she is or does. The only problem I have with her is she is pretty squishy. But she gets that shield, which is good. Moving on to Zalaparo. He is pretty good. I actually didn't know what he did for the longest time because I didn't even bother looking at his kit until I fought him in Extreme Challenge. And then when I actually fought him in Extreme Challenge, I was like, yo, what's going on? Why am I getting wrecked so bad? Why are they raging like nonstop? Why are they healing? I was just struggling. And then I went and read his kit and I was like, yo, Xyloparo's actually pretty good. And I did use him for a little bit as well. So, after that, I did use him for a little bit. I only had him at 4-star. Didn't really put too much into him, but nonetheless, he was pretty good at 7-star. He could be pretty useful. He does that big rage here. It's like 200 rage, right? Ally with the lowest rage by an additional 100. Yeah. So he could get some pretty crazy or pretty good rage. Another thing I liked about him is the Master Skill proc chance. Master Skill proc chance is so good. I'm not sure if it's for the entire team because it says, let's see, the proc chance of Master Skills is increased permanently. If it's for the entire team, I think he goes up to top tier. But I don't think it is for the entire team, so I'm going to drop him into OK. I don't think I put him in situation at all. I don't think he's situation at all. Yeah, OK is probably not a bad place for him. I see a lot of people could probably put him in bad, and I'd probably be like, yep, I could agree with that as well. With that, OK isn't too bad of a spot for him. But with that, moving on to our final character here. We have Tosin. Tosin is magnificent. He was good before the Awakened Runes. He was great after the Awakened Runes. As you can see here, he does a little bit of bleed. Bleed isn't the best thing, but especially when your attack's low, but still good. Rage is where it's at, though. Defense is decreased by 20%. He gets the extra bleed off. Bleed, not too great. And then his passive, when he's alive, the attack of the back row ally is increased by 12.8%. Pretty darn good. Then on top of all that, he just does flat decreases the damage reduction rate of the targets too. Like, he's so good. And then if you thought he wasn't good enough at shredding after that, let's take a look here at his mastery skills. I'm sorry, his awakened skills here. Rage attacks have a 25% increase. Crit chance, poopy. Nobody cares about that because he doesn't do any damage, or doesn't do very much damage. He does decent damage, but not very much. And 6 runes is the big one. Cream de la crop. Here we have the rage attacks increase the attack of all allies by 18%. And you could toss on some morsels onto him that really, really help him out. I know my screen's a little messed up right now for that, but you could toss on some morsels that really, really help him out and get him going for some good 6v6 fun. And he could be a key part of your one-shot team. Top tier. Top tier, absolutely. Honestly, I'm half tempted to put him into any team because he's that good. But I'm going to put him into top tier because I probably use him before a lot of these units. And he's just that good. Like, he's solid. He shreds the enemy's defense. He increases your attack. And with the right morsels on him, you know, he can really do some amazing things. Be a really strong support / little damage, you know, a little bit of damage dealing unit. And with that, that wraps this one up. That will do it there. Let's move this out of the way. Get rid of that. And let's take one quick look at this tier list. I think all these characters are pretty solid. I could drop maybe 1 or 2 of these down. I could drop him down. I could drop him down. Honestly, I really do like Renji, though, here. Other than that, all these characters, absolutely top tier. Absolutely, I'm sorry. Any team, all these characters will be good on top tier characters. There's a case to be made for a couple of these characters to be moved up a little bit. Yeah, honestly, both of these characters could come up here, and I wouldn't bat an eye, because both of these characters are that good. But, yeah, especially. But, yeah, I like those characters placed as is. I could also make a case for a couple of these characters being moved down as well, but I don't want to upset some people, so not trying to ruffle any feathers. Situational characters, I want to move Byakuya down, but he's actually not bad. Gives a little bit of rage. Just absolute shredder for the front row. Very, very good there. Tank, honestly, I could probably drop her down 1. Wouldn't be too bad. Early game, she's really, really strong, though. I am satisfied with this row as well. Very, very good with all these characters. Being in situational, some are really good, and some are just like, if you can get them in the right team, they can really pop and be moved up to top tier for sure. With that, moving on to OK. A couple of these units I want to move down. I really, really do. But I also want to move Lisa up as well. I really, really like Lisa. But she just doesn't do enough damage is the problem. She's too squishy. But yeah, I think this is pretty good. Again, a couple of these units could be moved down. A couple of these units could be moved up. But yeah, that's not too bad. Let's take a look here. Yeah, all these units are pretty bad. Yeah, especially in 6v6. If this was 1v1, a lot of these units would be in top tier for sure. But then again, we have a character like Ichigo that shouldn't even be on the stupid list. So yeah, with that, he really shouldn't be on this list. Cone is better. All these characters are just awful. I mean, there's a case to be made where you can move Rukia up. There's a case to be made. But I think I like her right there as is. Adenyeto, yeah, unfortunately he's just not that great. Loopy. Yeah, honestly, I'm pretty well pleased with this list. There's no real changes I'd make. Yeah, I am pretty happy as is. I really want to move Yummy down here as well, because Yummy really isn't that. He's really not that good. So, yeah, I think that's pretty solid. We actually have a really nice pyramid going for us here. That I just noticed. Pretty solid. I think all the characters are done pretty well. A lot of these characters down here really need to be buffed or really need to be changed. But once again, the game's never going to get updated ever again. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tier list. I really hope the moving the whatchamacallit in here as well helped you out. The extra screen here helped you guys out. Helped me out as well. And who knows? Maybe I'll make another tier list for something soon or whatnot. If you guys have any suggestions, feel free to hit me up in the description. Maybe I'll take you up on those suggestions. If not, feel free to join my Discord. Always open for people hanging out, the community. And yeah, had a lot of fun. Hope you guys had a lot of fun too. And check my description. I'll toss some tier lists in there as well. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.